Hi again, Mark here from Talking Bass. This week we're going to look at 7th chord arpeggios, what they are and how to play them. Now, I could do this here and now, but it just so happens that I've already recorded the perfect lesson on this topic for the Chords for Bass Guitar course over at Talking Bass, so I'm going to present that lesson to you today. As you're probably aware, arpeggios are simply chords played one note at a time. The individual notes of a chord are chord tones, and when we play them melodically in order, we have an arpeggio. So chord tones are the individual notes of a chord. Arpeggios are ordered lines of chord tones, and they're the most popular method for understanding chord construction and harmony on a bass. The study of chord tones is an essential part of understanding bass lines because, as bass players, much of our time is spent outlining chords, even if it's only by way of the root notes. Many times you'll see lessons providing advice to learn 4 or 5 basic arpeggio shapes on the bass. These are usually the major and minor triads, and then maybe the major 7, minor 7 and dominant 7 chords. Maybe a half diminished chord thrown in there for good measure. But these few arpeggios only scratch the surface. For example, you might know the notes in an A major 7 chord, but do you know an E diminished 7 chord or an A flat major 7 sharp 5? Do you know any added note chords like a D6 or an E flat minus 6 9? Do you know the basic extensions of the 9th, the 11th and the 13th? Or how to apply altered extensions like the flat 9, the sharp 11 or the flat 13? Then there's also suspensions, to add into the mix. And all of these chords are valid and common occurrences in music, and to understand them, you simply have to understand the basic principles of chord construction. Most importantly, the concept of tertian harmony. Tertian harmony is the building of chords by stacking third intervals, most commonly major and minor thirds. I've already got a whole lesson devoted to the basics of tertian harmony and the most basic of tertian chords, the triad, which I'll link to in the info below. But basically, triads are 3-note chords created by stacking one third on top of another. We can have a major third and a minor third, a minor third and a major third, a major third and a major third, and a minor third and a minor third. So those two types of third provide us with 4 different triads. The major triad, the minor triad, the augmented triad, and the diminished triad. So if you don't know any of that theory, be sure to click on the link in the info below and learn your triads first. Once you have a good understanding of triads, you can move on to 7th chords. All we do is add another stacked third to each triad. This is where we'll be picking up in this lesson. Remember, if you want to understand more about chord construction and music theory, the Chord Tone Essentials course over at Talking Bass is a complete deep dive into all of this and covers every chord that you're ever likely to encounter, how to play those arpeggios all over the fretboard, and then how to apply those chord tones in your bass lines, your fills, and your solos. So without further ado, let's look at 7th chords. So now we've looked at triads, let's move on to the next step in our tertian harmony system with a look at 7th chords. 7th chords are 4-note chords that we create by simply adding another third to our basic triads. So triads contain 2 stacked thirds, and 7th chords contain 3 stacked thirds. Because we already have an exhaustive set of 4 triads, all we have to do is add the 2 thirds, major and minor, onto each one. So we can take a major triad as an example, then add the major third and the minor third on top, and that triad gives birth to 2 new 7th chords. So the triad is the fundamental foundation. So let's just work through our set of basic 7th chords as arpeggios. So we'll stick to a root note of C here at the 3rd fret of the A string and play through each one in turn. So let's start with a C major triad. So we had C, E and G, 3rd fret A string, 2nd fret and 5th fret D string. Okay? So now we want to add a major third on top. So if we take the G, add a major third from there, we get a B. Okay, 4th fret of the G string. C, E, G and B. That is a major 7 chord. Okay, so when we take a major triad and add a major third on top, we get a major 7th. In terms of the construction there, you can see that we have the major third, then the minor third, and then the major third. So you can see each of those thirds in turn. But then if we relate all of those notes just back to the root note, back to C, we've got the major third, the perfect fifth, and the major seventh. And it's that major seventh interval that gives us the name major 7. Next, if we take that C major triad and from that G we add a minor third, so G to B flat, we get the notes C, E, G, B flat. This is a dominant 7 chord, and that's written as C7. Okay, so you take the root note and just put a 7 on the end. For the major 7, it's Maj 7, M-A-J 7. Okay, so intervallically from the root there, we've got the root note, the major third, the perfect fifth, and the minor 7th. Okay, so I'll explain the reason for the name dominant 7th a little later. So practice playing those 2 arpeggios all around the neck. You know, take major 7 there, play it all around, up and down, and always be aware of the stacked thirds in there, as well as the overall intervallic construction. If you've learned your intervals well enough, you'll see them right there based off that root note. Next, let's move to the minor triad, again from a root note of C. So if we take the C there, 3rd fret of the A string, our minor triad could be C, E flat, G, 3rd fret, 6th fret, A string, and then 5th fret of the D string. There's the C minor triad, and then we want to add our 2 thirds again. So we've got the major third and the minor third. So from that G there, 5th fret of the D string, we can add a major third, giving us the B, 4th fret of the G string, or we could have the minor third, the B flat, at the 3rd fret of the G string. So let's look at those 2 in turn. So first of all, C, E flat, G, B with the major third. That is a minor major 7 chord. Okay, so this would be a C minor major 7. Okay, want to play that up and down, and then if we take the minor third on the top for the B flat, C, E flat, G, B flat, that's a minor 7. So you can see how this works with the intervals in there. So for the major minor 7, we've got the minor triad with a major 7th on the top. Hence the name minor major 7. Then for the minor 7, it's just a minor triad with a minor 7th on the top. So it's just a minor 7. Okay, hence the name again. Minor major 7 and minor 7. Next, let's move on to the augmented triad. Now this one is a little different, as you'll see. So if we take the C augmented triad, C, E, G sharp, 3rd fret A string, 2nd and 6th frets on the D string. From that G sharp, we want to add that major third and the minor third. So G sharp, major third, look what we have. We have a C there. So that's the root note. So it just brings us back, and this leads back to the augmented triad that I talked about in the earlier lesson, being symmetrical. If we just add those major thirds one after another, we get back to the root note very quickly. So there isn't a 7th chord based on that major third there. So we just move straight to the minor third, which gives us the B there. Okay, so C, E, G sharp, B. That is major 7 sharp 5. You see that because if you take the major 7 chord, C, E, G, B, it's exactly the same but with that sharpened 5th. Okay, so it's a C major 7 sharp 5. Finally, let's move on to the diminished triad. So for a C diminished, we have C, E flat, and G flat. So root, minor third, and then the diminished 5th. So now from that G flat, we want the major and minor third. So from the G flat for a major third, we get the B flat. Okay, so C, E flat, G flat, B flat. That is a minor 7 flat 5 chord, which is also called a half diminished. Okay, then if we take that G flat and we play a minor third, we actually get what is a B double flat. Okay, so I know it looks like an A, but it's actually a B double flat, because think, if we're moving up in thirds, we're on a G of some kind, we're going to be moving up to a B of some kind, G, A, B. Okay, it's all alphabetical. So for that third, we get the B double flat. That chord is a diminished 7 chord. Called that because that note that we've just played there is actually a diminished 7th interval from the C. Okay, so don't worry too much about all of that. Just be aware that that chord there with the double flat for the 7th is a diminished 7 chord. So we now have 7 different seventh chords that we've created from those 4 basic triads. So from the major triad, we had the major 7 and dominant 7 chords. Then from the minor triad, we had the minor major 7 and minor 7 chords. Then from the augmented, we just had that single major 7 sharp 5 chord. And then from the diminished, we've got that minor 7 flat 5 and the diminished 7 chord, okay? So that's our 7 basic set of 7th chords. So let's just run through that set of chords as an exercise, and we'll just play this on a root note of C. So we begin with C major 7, just play up and down. Then C7. Then onto the minor triads, we have minor major 7. Then minor 7. Then we move into the augmenteds. The major 7 sharp 5, and then into the diminished. So we've got minor 7 flat 5 and the diminished 7. Now for the diminished 7, rather than playing this awkward fingering that I've got here, where I'm working up C, E flat on the A string, G flat on the D string, and then the B double flat on the G string, what you can do is just play a simple pattern there, playing a minor 3rd on the A string and a minor 3rd on the D string. So C and E flat, 3rd fret, 6th fret on the A string, and then the G flat and the B double flat, or A, on the D string, 4th fret up to the 7th fret, okay? And that's a much easier fingering there. Okay, so that's the whole set of chords. So let's just try that one more time. Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the augmented triad can only be extended to the major 7 sharp 5 by way of our tertian harmony. This leads me to mentioning a few non-tertian chords. So these are chords that fall into the same category of 7th chords because we have a root note, a type of 3rd, a type of 5th, and a type of 7th, but they can't be created by way of major and minor 3rds alone. The 3 non-tertian 7ths that we'll look at are the dominant 7 sharp 5, the dominant 7 flat 5, and the diminished major 7 chord. Now, out of these 3 chords, the dominant 7 sharp 5 is by far the most common and often referred to as the augmented 7 chord. The dominant 7 flat 5 is used occasionally, but the diminished major 7 is very rare in general pop, rock, and jazz use. So, for the dominant 7 sharp 5, we simply take a dominant 7 chord, C, E, G, B flat there, and we sharpen the 5th. So C, E, G sharp, B flat. Okay, so 3rd fret A string, 2nd fret and 6th fret on the D string, and then the 3rd fret on the G string. So, you know, the name there, dominant 7 sharp 5, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay? The dominant 7 flat 5 is a dominant 7 chord with a flattened 5th. So, C, E, G, B flat for the dominant 7, and then we just play C, E, G flat, and B flat for the dominant 7 flat 5, and obviously that'll be written as 7 flat 5. So there's a C7 flat 5 chord. The diminished major 7 is a little odd. This is a diminished triad with a major 7. So if we take a C diminished, C, E flat, G flat, add the major 7 on the top, the B natural, we get C, E flat, G flat, B natural. So we've got that odd move from the flat 5 there up a perfect 4th or an augmented 3rd if you want to see it as a 3rd. So just a very strange sounding chord and a very strange arpeggio. And I think the only time I've ever seen this used in a piece is actually the theme from Psycho. So it's in there, but apart from that, it's a very rare chord. So that's pretty much it for our 7th chords. That's the construction principles for every 7th chord you're likely to encounter. And you can see how, if you understand how tertian harmony works, you know, the stacking of 3rds, and you have a good basis of learning your triads there, the 7th chords are very straightforward. You just take each triad in turn, add a major and a minor 3rd on top, and that's it. That's how you create those 7th chords. So that's the whole set of 7th chords. In the next lesson, we're going to be looking at actually limiting that down to 4 essential 7th chords.